Hello, welcome to the video. Today's video we want to take a look at the best teams for the Retro Cup. The Retro Cup is not going to allow you to use any type that's been added after Generation 1, which are 3 types, Dark, Steel and Fairy typing. All Pokemon with this type are not allowed, making it a very interesting one, because basically those types got introduced in Pokemon just to balance types that were already existing, and as those types are not available in this cup, there are certain types that are very overpowered, which you're going to take a look here today as well. If you enjoy this type of videos, they're always quite a lot of work, so I would really appreciate if you would leave a like and subscribe. And also, if I sound a little bit weird, I'm a bit sick, but yeah, please feel free to leave a like, would really appreciate it. Bit of a cold, it's fine. But we can move on to the meta now. Taking a look now at the meta for the Retro Cup, again, there's going to be no Dark, Steel or Fairy type Pokemon available for this meta. So, Pokemon that have good coverage for those going to be very solid, like, for example, the Oranguru. Otherwise, you're going to see Pokemon like Lostheart that are going to be always very strong based just because they're a very strong Pokemon here up here as well. But this makes Oranguru even better, and as you can see here, the key loss is the worst Pokemon to face for Oranguru is Jumpluff with 345 over ranking, which is really not bad. Which means this Pokemon is insanely neutral. It is basically having no answer at all, which is ridiculous, and there are some few more Pokemon that can do the same, like every kind of Dragon Breath user, every kind of Dragon type Pokemon. There's no Fairy types, there are no Steel type Pokemon. Makes them very free to run. Of course, they can still offensively counter them with Ice type Pokemon, which you're going to have a lot here today as well, with the Roller users like the Dunsparce. And so it's going to be an interesting meta. I think the meta is going to be fine. Like, I don't think the meta is going to be interesting and cool. The issue is it's going to be very stale after quite a few days, because it is going to be very much around Oranguru. It's going to be very much around Arctibex, around like Dragon Breath users generally speaking. So yeah, be sure about this one. There are going to be still a few interesting options here, generally speaking, like Priming as well. We're going to have some teams around this. Stay tuned for this one. Dugong, very good Pokemon. Let's move on to the top teams. Taking a look now at team number 1, we're going to see here basically a team out of Pokemon that are impossible to counter. We're going to have Dragon Breath users here. We're going to have Confusion users. There is no Dark type, there is no Steel type, there is no Fairy type. Means neither Dragon or Psychic type having really any answers. Psychic typing has one answer, which is other Psychic type Pokemon, which makes it not really an answer. And here, especially Oranguru and Girafarig have a little bit of a uniqueness of having not really a weakness right now, I feel like, because the main weakness of those Pokemon is the Dark typing, as Psychic type moves going to be resisted. Thanks to the normal typing, Ghost type moves are going to be resisted as well. And with this, I guess the Bug typing are going to be super effective against Girafarig and Oranguru, but those Pokemon are going to be very overpowered because there's nothing that can really swap into a Confusion, especially from Oranguru, because they also have Brutal Swing, so the only Pokemon that can take resistant damage from Confusion are going to be other Psychic type Pokemon that you hit for super effective damage, no matter what, making this a very interesting Pokemon. Yeah, again, the Fairy type Pokemon are not available there as well, so you don't have to worry about any kind of retaliation that's like from Pokemon that won't be able to resist the Brutal Swing. There's Gallade as a Psychic and Fire type Pokemon that would take only neutral damage from Brutal Swing, but basically everything else Oranguru is going to be good against. So Oranguru is going to be definitely here the best Pokemon of this meta, just because it's so insanely neutral, and especially in the 2-shade scenario, there's barely any Pokemon that can really beat this thing here. So for sure, the most safest team here, I would say. Girafarig going to be very strong as a closer as well for this team. If you want to climb, this team is going to give you always neutral matchup. There's like no matchup at all that you're going to be completely lost against. And so, yeah, this team is quite ridiculous, quite overpowered, and we can move on to team number 2. Which is going to be around the Clodsire. Clodsire is available here as well, using Stone Edge this time around, which is quite interesting. Give it coverage against Pokemon like the Arctibex, I guess it's going to make a little bit of sense. We're going to have Goodra here as a Saysop. You can also use the Arctibex again as well. Here the thing as well for like the Pokemon that you saw in team number 1, but here also like as our Saysops. You can basically put Arctibex, any kind of Dragon type Pokemon, Oranguru or Girafarig, as any kind of slot in any kind of team. It doesn't really matter. Those Pokemon are just uncounterable. Doesn't mean that like there are no Pokemon that actually going to be able to beat them, but you're not going to be able to beat them just based on like the typing itself. You have to kind of beat them based on what moves you have and what kind of stats you have, which kind of makes them very good as like Saysops, as like here Goodra for example as well, as a Dragon Breath user. In the back we're going to have the only real decent Fairy type Pokemon other than another one which you're going to see later in terms of having fairy type coverage, which is going to be the Jump Love, having access to Fairy Wind as a fast move, still not really doing that much damage against Dragon type Pokemon. But more interestingly here for me even is going to be a Abomasnow as a Shadow Pokemon here. This thing is going to have a lot of play in the current meta. I would really recommend you to take a look at Abomasnow. I think this Pokemon is going to be great, especially with Weather Ball Ice. Moving on to the next team, we're going to have here a team around Primeape and Annihilate. This is kind of a team that I used before in other metas as well. I usually would use something like the Liveni here with this kind of team. But yeah, Primeape, Annihilate, very, very solid Pokemon, especially Annihilate as well. Very good typing, as you're gonna see here. Basically, this team is going to have no hard counter as well. We are running some very strong normal types here with Licky and Dunsparce. So it's going to have a lot of play in the meta as well. But also, Annihilate here in the lead is going to be very good. The only Pokemon that looks like it's going to be able to beat us a bit is going to be the Clodsire. It's actually not as bad. It's even the Annihilate as well as the Licky and the Dunsparce all have some neutral play against this Pokemon. Moving on, we're going to see here now team number 4. We're going to see the Jump Off underneath, the Dugong and the Auroras. Dugong and Aurora is going to be Pokemon that I really think are going to be great for the upcoming meta, especially Dugong here as well. Having great coverage, that's going to be very neutral against a lot of Pokemon. Yes, Primeape and Feraligatr are going to be a bit of a tricky one, but against basically everything else, you're going to have some kind of play. This team can struggle a little bit against those normal rollout users, I have to say this, but against everything else it's going to be fine. Against normal rollout users, again, you can also use just like certain answers to them. You can also use maybe something like even a Primeape in the back there if you're really scared of them. But otherwise, the team looks like a lot of fun. I think it's going to have a lot of play as well. And yeah, there's the substitute here as well of Feraligatr, which we're going to have another team with this Pokemon very soon as well. Here's very similar to team number 3, but it is quite a bit different on how you want to play this one. We're going to have here Oranguru in the lead, again, being like one of the most neutral Pokemon, having no hard loss matchup here at all. What you kind of want to do with this Pokemon is you just want to play it out. Like, depending on how the opponent is playing and what they have, maybe try to go for the 0 shields, maybe play the 1 shield, maybe play the 2 shield. It really depends on what Pokemon they're going to have there. But what you kind of want to have is alignment basically later on, because Licky and Primeape have a great synergy, as you can see on paper as well. Those Pokemon kind of destroy each other's weaknesses, which is really, really important. And so I feel like this is going to be a very interesting strategy. So stay in with Oranguru, try to play out the lead matchup, don't really care too much about the health of this Pokemon, and then you can align yourself and have a great core of Licky and Primeape, which is the main idea behind this team. Next one, we're going to have here at least still some Mud Slappers available as well. We're going to have the Gastron there. We're going to have other Mud Slappers that are also very solid. Basically, every Mud Slapper is going to be available for this meta here. But as you can see, again, we're going to have a Oranguru as a Sazom, which makes a lot of sense because he kind of can finish with this team here with Oranguru, the Water, Fire, Grass at core, because you at least have a Water type Pokemon in the lead. Can also run Water Pulse if you want to. You have Grass typing in terms of Trailblaze on Oranguru, and then you have, of course, the Talonflame as a Fire type Pokemon. I feel like Talonflame going to have a lot of play as well. I'm not too sure on how common Feraligatr is going to be with a lot of normal type Pokemon that are going to be very strong. But yeah, this team definitely looks solid on paper, and we can move on to the next one, which is going to have here the Altaria in the lead, a Pokemon that you rarely really see, especially now after the recent change to Sky Attack again as well. This Pokemon is going to still have a lot of play in this meta. Other Dragon type Pokemon are going to have a lot of play as well. We're going to have Oranguru here, and we're going to have Cresselia, which is the only real Fairy type Pokemon, even though it's not a Fairy type, because you're going to have access to Moonblast. Moonblast doing a lot of damage. Next to no other Pokemon really going to have access to good Fire type. Charge moves, there's something like Ursaring, which I saw still, which has access to Play Rough, but like there is only really Cresselia here that does do some solid Fairy type damage. And again, in a matter where a lot of Dragon type Pokemon are going to be very strong, something like Cresselia going to have a lot of play here with Moonblast for sure. Here's a team that I kind of like a lot. We're going to have Aurora's Double Fighting. Aurora's, of course, as an answer for all the Flying type Pokemon, but then Machamp as a non-Shadow Payback variant. Why non-Shadow, why Payback? Because if you run Payback on this Pokemon, you're going to be able to one-shot Oranguru. If you have the non-Shadow variant, it is more likely that the Oranguru going to no-shield against you. And if you can then hit a Payback and realign yourself, it is game over. And so I feel like Machamp, even as a non-Shadow, has a lot of play. You can use a Shadow, you don't have to use Payback either if you don't have this move. But Shadow Machamp here, generally speaking, is going to be a very strong Pokemon. You could also argue of going for a Rock Slide or the Stone Edge here in order to have the same coverage as your lead of Auroras. But yeah, this team looks like a lot of fun on paper, and I think it's going to be a great team to use. With this, we're gonna start off with a team number 9 now. We're going to have a double dragon dugong line here, or of course you're going to have a Broguiere in the primate. As you will see here, while dragon don't look as great on paper, they're going to be very, very strong, especially in the 2-shield stereo for the meta. Here, still, you're going to have a little bit of a struggle with potentially those rollout users again, like normal type rollout users. So I could see a meta as well where Dugong, Dragonair, and then the Primate going to be a better matchup as general, because Dragonair are going to have neutral matchups there, not taking any super effective hits. Primate having a great matchup, and Dugong of course having a not that great matchup against Pokemon like the Dunsparce. And so I feel like this team definitely looks like a lot of fun here. Again, you can go double Dragon, but I actually would recommend you to go for Dugong, Dragonair, as well as the Primate. And so we can move on to team number 10, which is going to be the final one for today. We're going to have the Arctibrix in the lead, we're going to have the Feraligatr in the back, and then the Drifblim here. And Drifblim has some play, has some potential, is quite high up on the rankings, but I don't actually think it's going to be the best Pokemon here. I actually feel like with Toxapex, this team makes even a little bit more sense, especially as you're going to be able to bait out potentially something like Oranguru, or they say some of Feraligatr has access to Shadow Claw. They might want to go into the normal type Pokemon. Stuff like this is going to be very interesting for this team here. But yeah, also Toxapex is going to allow you to have a little bit of a lesser weakness against those rollout users again. It's good to otherwise have a double weakness to those, and against normal types, of course, you don't do too much with Feraligatr. But yeah, this is going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, feel free to leave a like. Those teams should work out definitely very, very well as well there. But also, we're going to see a lot of gameplay here on the channel, so definitely stay tuned, subscribe, and yeah, I am quite sick, so I'm just going to say goodbye to you now. Bye bye.